What we do know is that it's time for our Midday Minutes. We're continuing our deep dive into the rise of film here in Western New York. Couldn't do this week without having Addison Henderson on the show. Probably one of my favorite filmmakers, local filmmakers. I put you in, you know, like my top 200.
Oh, okay, top 200.
My top 200 list of local filmmakers.
I didn't know it was that many filmmakers here in Buffalo.
You probably at like 197 or so.
Okay, great. I'll take
Really couldn't do this week without him because he booked half my guests. But I had you on the show because you just wrapped your film G.O.D., your first feature film that you shot here in Western New York. Of course, you've been out in L.A. for the past 15 years, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, though, before I start, I just want to say happy birthday to my beautiful mother.
Oh, who's
today.
here with us?
Yeah.
It's her birthday.
Yeah, it's her birthday. Today's her birthday, so she's my biggest supporter, so I couldn't go without saying that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wrapped here in Buffalo. It was a great experience, you know.
Well, tell me, I think a lot of people are wondering, here's some video of you on set of G.O.D. A lot of people are wondering, with the Buffalo International Film Festival coming, why we aren't seeing G.O.D. in the film festival here.
Well, you know, there's a film festival cycle, and the beginning of our cycle was the Sundance Film Festival. That was my target goal when we raised the money that we would get the project done to submit to Sundance. Now, when the next year's Buffalo International Film Festival rolls around, hopefully they'll accept my film and it'll be showing for all the residents and all the people in the city of Buffalo.
So it's going to cycle around. We'll see here next year. But I want to talk a little bit about the work that went into G.O.D. Because when we did our first interview a few months ago, you told me how you did this whole thing in a year. You had this idea, you were going to write it, shoot it, you played the lead actor, you directed it, all of this, and submit to Sundance in less than a year. So was that just like a, I want to see if I can do it? Why do we do this in a year?
I don't know. I guess I'm just a masochist, I guess.
You are. You wanted to torture yourself.
Yeah, I did. But, you know, last summer, I was in the Hamptons with my producer, Trent Bowling, and I told him I had an idea. It was late night, and I was sitting up thinking, I said I had an idea, and then we were riding back to Buffalo, and we started talking about some of the scenes of what could be in it and things of that nature. And then when I went to Philly to work on the movie 21 Bridges, around this time, I started writing. Around this time last year, I started writing, and then right after the holidays, came to Buffalo and said, all right, I wrote a script, I'm going to make a movie. And, you know, I was bent on making this movie.
And you've done films here before, like what, 14 years ago? When did you do The Forgotten City?
I did The Forgotten City with Corey Green around about 15, 16 years ago. And then right after that, a year and a half later, I did The Experience, was a documentary I did here in Buffalo and in Ghana, West Africa.
So this is some of your earlier work, and I know that when you're doing projects like this, it was really you said Corey Green, you kind of went out, you had a camera, you filmed a movie, you did two documentaries like that. So talk about sort of your rise and sort of as you progressed in the industry, kind of how it's gotten bigger.
I would say my whole rise and everything I've done has been a war of attrition. It's just been a lot. I've went from one thing to the next, and a lot of people that know me, I never stopped moving, I never stopped creating. So after I came back from Africa, I said, all right, it's time for me to go back to LA and to begin to do my acting again, because this documentary filmmaking kind of fell into my lap, which was great, because I wanted to tell stories of my father and the things that he had experienced in his life. And so I was doing documentaries all of a sudden, but I really write science fiction and supernatural things. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to LA and just start pursuing it. And I was like doing short films, acting and directing, web series, acting and directing and writing. So it was like preparatory for me to come here and to do a feature film when I did everything.
And I think that we just showed some of your early work. I think that when you were here filming this, even when you were telling me about it, I'm thinking it's going to be, you kept saying indie film. I'm like, okay, he's going to be out there with a camera, one or two people. I visited set a few times and I was like, this is a large scale production. You're going to think this is so silly. I had to ask 5 people what this was, but I have video. Julie, can you show this video I have of when it clicked for me? What is this?
Oh, that's a call sheet.
So I've never seen a call sheet before in my life, and I remember sitting there on set, and I was just pretending to mind my own business, but I kept pulling this sheet over to me, and I'm like, I'm like, you have hospitals, the weather, the director, like, I don't know why it clicked for me. Like, you had a crew of what, almost 30 people?
At a given time, 30 people were on the payroll.
And I'm looking and I'm like, oh, this is a legit movie. This is a big scale thing.
Absolutely.
Talk to me then quickly about some of the differences between shooting in Hollywood versus shooting here. Like, what are the differences in making a film?
Shooting in Hollywood is cool.
Yeah.
You know, but I like the rustic beauty that Buffalo brings, and the fact that I have grown up under so much history here in Buffalo, and my family is a part of history. Buffalo is an amazing place. Just the locations. As I was writing, I was like, oh, we can shoot here, we can shoot there, and it really gave an epicness to the film. Even though it's indie, it's just like when you see some of the shots, it's like, you can't, like, you know, the production designers would like lose it looking at that, like, oh my God, how did they get that?
Right. One of your producers was explaining to me kind of the differences, and she said, you know, an actress got hurt, and she was like, oh my gosh, the whole thing's gonna shut down. But the actress was like, I just super glued my finger and kept going. Like, the actors are even different.
Pam Rosemangus super glued her finger and said, let's go. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about.
All right, lastly, before I have to let you go, you told me when I interviewed you, said I want people to be inspired to say, I have a story I want to tell, I might not have the money for it, but I can go get it. So what do you want, what is your advice to other people who might want to do something like this? You went and raised almost $500,000 in a couple months to shoot this film. How can others do that?
Firstly, I start off as a writer. You end up with a blank page. Nobody has to pay you. Nobody has to tell you anything. You can go ahead and write, you know. But then on top of that, I spent a lot of my time making connections with people, building personal relationships, and I think that that's very vital for as a filmmaker when you want to get things done is relationship building, and that's what I did for a long time. I may have shot this movie in less than a year, but it's almost been 20 years in the process for me to get here.
Right. All right, I ran out of time, and now you got out of me asking you what the next project is.
That was quick.
That was very quick, but you know what? I might see if I can get you to give me a little something. We'll post it online for you after this. Addison, thanks so much for being here.